Okay, Andre, how are you? Yeah, helped, encouraged by working on this sermon and this passage.
That just made me think of Christ and how glory, success, all of that will be accomplished one day. All the crud that we go through in this world, all the nations, everything, it's going to come to an end one day because He's faithful to it. He's going to bring it about. So,
Yeah.
just encouraging reminder of that.
In my case, I was encouraged thinking about that you say right now, but thinking that while Christ is coming, in this meantime, He is continuing showing His grace to us, and by His grace we can be part of His kingdom.
Yeah, I was challenged by your kind of early application to Amasa, right? Like that olive branch kind of thing, that like as pastors, that's something we'd be helped by extending more often than just kind of harshness or sharpness. What were some areas that you need to improve on?
I think I totally forgot my introduction. I had a really good introduction story.
Oh, hey!
I forgot it.
We'll save it for another one.
Yeah, I just, just trying to do the Old Testament stories. I've never done them before, and just how to still preach and tell a story at the same time, and just juggling that.
Yeah.
It just feels, it's starting to feel a little better, but it's just
Yeah.
a little more difficult for me.
I had wrote here the intro thing that you made an intro.
Yeah.
But also you talk that there is a sandwich in the text, but you didn't explain that. You just
Didn't explain it enough.
and the other part of the sandwich is this. Like
Okay.
you didn't explain in the first time, like, well, we see this in the structure, so we see this first, and then in verse 40 we see.
Okay.
You only said the other part of the sandwich is that.
Okay.
You also said you didn't have any points,
Mm-hmm.
but you definitely had points.
Yes.
You just didn't call them points.
Yes.
But your big hangers around which you made your discussion, your sermon, were around like the people's renewed eagerness to have the king back. Right? You showed like at the beginning, they were like slow. At the end, they were fighting over who gets credit for it, right?
Yes.
Right.
And then you're like, and now we can see like the graciousness of his return.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like, you could have talked about like the eagerness for his return,
Yes.
the graciousness of his return.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could have even like, the way you transitioned to that, I thought you could have just like heightened it a little bit. I think you talked with Jeremy on Monday about the Mike Birbiglia thing and the guy from South Park, where like in the story it's not just this and then this and then this and then this. It's this, therefore this, right? He showed me he had this on his whiteboard. Did you guys do this?
I don't remember that.
Like seeing like how things move through the scenes. And so I think the way you understood it is you could have said, what accounts for how people go from being slow to wanting him back to so eager to having him back? What's the difference? What's the change? How is this kingdom going to endure? Well, we'll see it.
Okay.
Boom, and then you talked about because you were highlighting David's graciousness there.
Yeah.
And then you moved like to Jesus as like the expression of like a fulfillment.
Yeah.
So you did have points.
I guess on the sandwich, what I saw in the sandwich was just the fragility of the nation.
Yeah, okay, fine, call it that.
Yeah,
Fragility of the kingdom and
okay, yeah, okay,
graciousness of the king.
right,
Because you could even say like, man, look at this kingdom, it's so fragile.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
yeah,
So, I mean, do you hear how like that transitions a little bit better?
Right.
Or it's just like, it's fragile. And now we see the gracious king.
okay.
It's,
So that would be better off to have that as a point,
Yeah.
develop
those two,
that.
it's fragile. Look at the beginning and the end. We see it's fragile. Here, they're slow to bring them back, and at the end, they're arguing.
Okay,
And there's fierce words, right?
yeah,
What's gonna happen to this kingdom?
Mhm.
Is there gonna be a kingdom for David to come back to? How will this kingdom continue? Oh, well, let me show you,
okay,
all right?
okay,
And related to that the, after you explain that movement of the sandwich and you explained that last part, you repeat my only point.
Yeah, you kept saying my only
Yeah,
point.
my
I'm
only
like,
point.
nope, not true.
And then you said we're going to see some evidence of the grace, and you made 4 evidence.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So you have 4 points or sub-points.
right, right.
Yeah, you not only had
Yes.
points, you had sub-points.
And that could be confusing for some people that say, well, he had points or no points, but he had 4 evidence, he had...
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I liked how you turned to this, well, how can I say that? I wasn't sure how Revelation 19 reflected the graciousness of the king.
Hmm.
Because that's very different from what Jesus is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what I ended up doing there was playing more on where the political side, I was playing on the political side. Some people may say, oh, this is
Right.
political theater, or Jesus, or isn't, there's not gonna be any political theater when he comes in.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I can see how I kind of screwed that up then.
Well, maybe there was a way, I mean, you kind of did it, like you're like, you know, when he comes, like, he'll give the old guy a new body, and, you know, like Mephibosheth won't get cheated out of half of his stuff or something like that. It's like, yeah, I wasn't sure, I think
Yeah.
I could see how you would do it, and I love the idea of moving to, like, second coming.
Yes.
And I just also wasn't sure, like, that's the consummation of the kingdom, not like what helps it continue.
All right, yeah, yeah, that point too.
So I just thought like, either how you set it up, how you tie it in would be,
Right,
could be a little clean. I think it's an interesting place, or maybe it's your argument that needs to, I mean, when the king comes, he sets things right, whatever, but,
hmm,
because it is the return of the king.
hmm,
But then you were like, the kingdom endures.
yeah,
So I don't know, maybe like when the king returns, or the kingdom is established or firmed up when the king returns. And he does it by, I don't know, graciousness, and one day he'll do it by justice. I don't know, that could be a way. What, you got anything else, David?
Yes, one more thing. I got a little bit lost when you go back to chapter 15
mhm,
and then you move forward to chapter 22, I think so.
yeah,
The son of
Right.
David. I really don't. I really didn't get.
what I was trying to say.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, okay.
That movement.
Yeah, I was just trying to address like, oh, this is all diplomacy, and
Yes.
when I was trying to highlight that it was more than that, it was
Yes.
still that aspect of, because as he's going out, he's using, you know, the means that he has at his disposal, but it's, also enveloped in his trust in the Lord. So, and then as I went to 22, it was for the purpose of like how he expresses that in the Psalm. You will be, show mercy to those who are merciful. But I guess I messed it up.
Well, it could just be like your pacing and tone didn't vary a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's like you could just like ask the question, is this just political posturing? No, why not? Let's look at like two things, or like, let me just show you two places that might help us see that this is not. Just tell us like why you're doing these, even just really explicitly. Something like that. And it just was, yeah, you were pretty consistent just in your pace.
Yeah.
So I think some pauses, slowing down would help us like, just grab on.
Okay.
What was something that you thought you did do well in here, or maybe something you tried?
In the preparation, because at the first I saw there was this sandwich, and sometimes when I first was kind of taught about sandwiches and this stuff, like there's this concept of like, oh, there's this deep meaning here, and I spent a long time trying to find the deep meaning. And just like Jeremy says, go simple before you go hard, and
Yeah.
so I just decided I'm just gonna go David's graciousness.
Yeah.
And then that just helped me to move along faster and
Yeah.
put my stuff together. So,
I really like your main point. It was very descriptive of what you or what you are pointing us on in the text.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought your exegetical considerations and how you tied it into your main point there, and how you obviously understood it in like you understood the structure of this text, not just big picture with sandwich, but that even in between, how the stories of Shimei, Mephibosheth, and Barzillai like all relate to one another. They're all examples of this king's like mercy and graciousness. So, yeah, I thought you had a really clear understanding of the passage, and you demonstrated it really well. Yeah.
Yes, and continue with that. I really like that for evidence with these 4 different cases you mentioned, 4 or 5 different cases you mentioned, with Amasa, with Shimei, with Siba, Mephibosheth, and because when I read this passage, preparing the worship for today in the context, so I only saw that they are being loyalty to David, but I didn't saw that David was gracious to them. So I think that these points are very very important use of the artistical proofs for your main point.
I liked how you were applying your gospel connection, in that you're like, there's not going to be a Shimei there, or a Ziba, right? So like you started taking these things that you had listed out and showing how Jesus' graciousness and his justice, and that it's going to be the real deal, not just political maneuvering, is going to handle all these things. And like, and then even moving to the old, so like, you took something that you set up, and you called back to it and worked through like, and showed how this is actually going to be even a greater complete. You're like, they're not going to be these anymore. So you're showing that it's better, it's advanced, right? It's, and then you touched on each of the 4, which that's even picking up like the old man who was the good guy, how that was related. I just thought like, oh, that was good.
okay.
You got any others?
No.
You helped me understand what was happening at the first and last section. Like, you just brought real clarity to me in terms of like, what is this that they're arguing about, and the slowness, and like, who was first, like, and I was like, oh wow, like, you did that in like 3 minutes. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, like, I get this now, in a way that I didn't before.
Okay.
I don't know if this is what you're talking about, when you went back to Saul's illustration about the day of victory,
Oh, yeah.
like not,
Yeah,
I thought you did that well, I understood what you were doing in terms of saying, yeah, like David's doing just like Saul did, like this is a virtuous thing, it's a day of victory, we don't need to be telling nobody. I don't know why you did it, but I did understand like what you were doing, and I thought you did it, like I was with you on that. On 22, I was, when you went forward,
okay.
I kinda lost you there, but on that's 15, I think you
15
were,
was-
yeah, I was with you on that,
Okay.
so.